People are pissed off. People in America are pissed off. And you know why they're pissed off? Because
So Stephen A. Smith just delivered a masterclass in nonpartisan political analysis that cuts through the noise. He's taking aim at gerrymandering, political dysfunction, and why Americans are fed up with both parties. This isn't your typical partisan rant. It's strategic analysis from someone who calls it like he sees it.
contrary to what people want me to do, constantly wanting me to take a side, I'm not going to take a side. And the reason I'm not going to take the side is because the subject that I'm about to tackle applies to both sides.
This nonpartisan approach is exactly what's missing in political discourse. When analysts refuse to pick sides, they can actually diagnose the real problems. Gerrymandering hurts democracy regardless of which party benefits, and calling out both sides creates credibility that partisan voices simply can't match.
We saw something transpire in Virginia just yesterday. And when you think about issues like redistricting and the kind of impact that it has on American society, I hearken back to what I've said to you about the insurrection on January 6th, 2021.
This connection is brilliant. Gerrymandering creates safe districts that breed extremism because politicians only need to appeal to their base, not the center. When districts are rigged, representatives can ignore moderate voters entirely, leading to the polarization that culminated in January 6th.
Make no mistake, it was an insurrection. But we don't have to belabor that point. The reality of what happened is what happened. What we need to focus on is the why. And the why is very simple.
Exactly right. Acknowledging reality while focusing on root causes is how you actually solve problems. Most political commentary either denies what happened or exploits it for partisan gain. This approach asks the harder question: what systemic failures created these conditions?
Because even though they're relatively similar, it's not one and the same. You have to remember something. When you're talking about gerrymandering compared to redistricting, redistricting basically is the neutral, constitutionally required process of redrawing lines pretty much every 10 years. We know that hasn't happened because usually every 10 years when this stuff happens, but when it was happening in Texas, when it happened in California, they didn't wait 10 years. They did it in the middle of an administration, in the middle of a cycle. It usually happens every 10 years. That's not what's been happening as of recently. That's supposed to be redistricting. What has happened? What's the difference between that and gerrymandering?
The distinction matters enormously. Redistricting is constitutional and happens every decade. Gerrymandering is redistricting weaponized for partisan advantage, drawing bizarre districts to pack or crack opposition voters. Courts have struck down extreme maps, but both parties keep pushing boundaries.
So essentially, for this upcoming midterms, the Democrats have won their redistricting battle. Let's not forget what they also did in California in response to Texas.
Perfect example of the escalation. Democrats eliminated Republican seats in California after Texas Republicans did the same thing. Illinois Democrats drew maps so aggressive they eliminated multiple GOP incumbents. It's become an arms race where both sides justify extremism by pointing to the other.
The voters are forced to capitulate to wherever you have them at. Because in that particular area and what have you, you know that's how most people are going to vote. You don't necessarily have to campaign. You don't necessarily have to do but so much work in order to garner their vote because you know you got those votes on lock any damn way, and you end up winning an election basically, essentially, based on the place that you're at and the place that you have them districted.
The numbers are staggering. Only about 35 House seats are truly competitive now, down from over 100 in the 1990s. When 90% of districts are safe, representatives only face primary challenges from their own party's extremes. This breeds the dysfunction we see daily.
One would argue that Capitol Hill, the folks of Capitol Hill don't do shit anyway most of the time. So this is the latest piece of evidence that's going to allow you to do even less work than you were doing before.
Congressional approval hovers around 20% while re-election rates stay above 90%. That disconnect shows the system is broken. When politicians have guaranteed job security regardless of performance, they have zero incentive to compromise or actually solve problems for voters.
And I want to take a moment to applaud the Democrats
This sets up the key insight about effective politics versus messaging politics. Democrats won the redistricting battle tactically, but are losing the broader strategic war by focusing on issues that alienate swing voters instead of emphasizing economic concerns that unite them.
Your Kamala Harris, you can't get caught on video talking about how you support transgender changes even for people who are imprisoned. I know that was years ago. They hold this stuff against you. You can't do it.
Polling consistently shows these cultural issues are electoral poison in swing states. That Kamala clip about transgender surgery for prisoners got millions of views in attack ads. Progressive positions on these topics poll at 25-30% nationally, making them strategic disasters.
It's a waste of time. It's just rhetoric. You're not getting him out of office before 2028. Stick with the issues that work.
With Trump now in his second term, impeachment talk is pure political theater. Smart strategy focuses on winnable 2026 midterms and 2028 by emphasizing kitchen table issues, healthcare costs, housing prices, job security, not constitutional law debates that excite only political junkies.
Because when you see them on TV talking about issues, they're talking about the issues that really, really matter to us. They're talking about the really issues that really, really matter to the American people. If you're transgender or a member of the LGBTQ community that supports them, please understand, I'm not denying support for them.
This is the key distinction between governing and campaigning. Personal support for marginalized communities doesn't require making them the centerpiece of every campaign. Voters care about their daily struggles first, and successful politicians understand that hierarchy of concerns.
If you're worried about paying your bills, if you're worried about the borders being flooded with illegal migrants, if folks are crying in the courts and on Capitol Hill about family members or loved ones that have been harmed or killed, if neighborhoods are being ravaged with gang violence and stuff like that, they're looking at migrants. Not that the migrants are the only people doing that, because they're not. We know America is ravaged with that stuff all the time. But what people are talking about is what is avoidable and what is not.
Brilliant insight into voter psychology. Americans tolerate problems they see as inevitable, but rage against ones they view as preventable. Gang violence feels like an unsolvable urban problem, but border crossings feel like policy choices. That perception gap drives electoral outcomes.
People don't care what sexual preferences you have, what proclivities you have, or whether you even want to get a sex change or whatever. Nobody cares. Do you? What they do care about is if it costs taxpayer dollars.
Polling confirms this perfectly. Americans support LGBTQ rights by wide margins, but oppose taxpayer funding for transition procedures by similar margins. The live and let live versus don't spend my money distinction creates a massive political opportunity that Democrats keep missing.
Because if we got that much debt, we know eventually you coming to ask for our money.
National debt just hit $39 trillion, and every voter knows it. When people struggle with grocery bills and housing costs, debates about social programs feel tone deaf. Fiscal anxiety trumps social tolerance when voters feel economically squeezed.
It ain't gonna work, because that's what Stephen A's doing. I have no skin in the game. Wherever I'm at, despite the fact that I have a home in Florida, I still got a place in New York and California.
This financial independence allows for objective analysis that politicians can't match. When you don't need donations or votes, you can focus purely on what works strategically rather than what appeals to activist bases. That's why this analysis cuts so deep.
I'm talking about the strategy that you employ that's ultimately going to cost me out my ass, because your strategy ain't working.
Poor political strategy creates real economic consequences for everyone. Failed campaigns lead to bad governance, which leads to inflation, debt, and policy disasters that affect all Americans regardless of their political views. Strategy matters because outcomes matter.
We got to get back to what works, what's practical, what's real, and what's fool's gold. And stop having people get moralistic and all of this other stuff. That's nonsense. This is how people are thinking.
The core message: pragmatism beats ideology every time. Winning elections requires understanding voter priorities, not lecturing them about what they should care about. Moral posturing feels good, but loses races. And losing races means bad policy outcomes for everyone.
When they're speaking from a practical perspective about what's going to work, Hakeem Jeffries is another one. When you're speaking about practical issues that are going to work and are not going to work, that's what we want to hear.
The lesson here transcends party lines. Successful politics requires understanding your audience and prioritizing winnable issues. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, ignoring voter concerns in favor of activist demands is a recipe for electoral disaster and policy failure.